when you think of innovation, innovation in these fields, let's first talk about these transitional programs, because when I think of a needs assessment, these pre-arrival programs that you're talking about, technology has a lot to do here. And when you're talking about the work that you did at Rotman and U of T, when you were providing these professional development prescriptions, like now I think of an app, and I think of AI, popping these things out. I'm thinking of I'm sure there were a high investment of human resources involved in that program when you ran it.
Absolutely. It was, I think for the Rotman one, we had six different categories. So, do your true colors. That was big at the time. Respond to this job posting, take a video of yourself doing your 60-second pitch. And somebody had to review all of this. Somebody had to watch and provide feedback on all of this. So it was in the MBA program, we were lucky enough that we had incredible resources to make things like that happen. We had the human resources to be able to provide that level of feedback. In a college like Centennial with 28,000 students, we don't have the human resources to be able to do that. And so I think the answer to a lot of our questions or issues is really technology. How do we leverage technology systems and tools to be able to automate certain pieces of that and then reserve the human resources that we have for the follow-up, for that relationship building, for that coaching that we know technology just can't do. And so I think for us, what I've been working on, a couple of different things, actually. So I think Head Start is one of them. And I think what we don't have a fulsome needs assessment that we do at the beginning of Head Start now, but that is coming. We're changing platforms for Head Start. And so the idea will be that as soon as a student gets access to our program, that there is some kind of needs assessment that it leverages technology so that we can automate some pieces of that needs assessment and give feedback to students early on about what we can offer them. How does that map to our co-curricular offerings? And can they start, 5 months before they come to make sure that they are prepared for the first day? So really taking it out of that orientation week and making sure that it's there with them and they're working with the material for 5 months before they come. And
then making that material available online as well.
Absolutely.
Right? So the professional development modules, it's not, hey, wait till you get here. And then when you get here are the learning opportunities that could really help you. It's here's a link. Yeah. It's, and it's all, how are you finding too? One of the things that I've found has been a problem in a lot of these types of a la carte offerings, because, like you say, there's different professional development modules that you make available. Students need individual kinds of things, is cohesion.
Yes.
So is there is there like a learning management software that you're envisioning they're getting access to even pre-program? And then there's these orientation PD, you get registered for the modules that are relevant to you based on the needs assessment. And it's doing two things. One, it's keeping their learning in this one place, but two, it's familiarizing them with the learning management software that they'll be exposed to when they actually get to the home institution.
Absolutely. So that is what we've done with Head Start. When we started Head Start 5 years ago, it really was support international students. And prior to that point, we sent them 2 emails to onboard them. And I think we had a click-through rate of like 21%. So, we were sending the information, but nobody's reading it, right? And we have problems with that at the best of times. So I think what we did with Head Start is we put it on, we have 2 different systems. We have eCentennial, which is D2L, which is what we use as our learning management system. We have Ellucian or Banner, where we currently use house Head Start at the moment, but we're migrating Head Start to our experiential learning platform as we speak. And so we're hoping that our fall iteration of Head Start will be on the new platform. And the idea is that is a platform that everybody's going to get to use once they come. It will be the one place that will house our whole, all of our co-curricular offerings, and to be honest, some of our curricular offerings as well at the college. This will be our kind of skills lab of sorts, and students will get access to that as part of Head Start months before they even come. And I think the value in that is that, they're not just getting access to it, and they're not just able to see this material, which is essentially flat on a page, which is what they currently have access to. There will be a progress bar. They'll be able to see that they're working through different modules and where they are within those modules. And we as an institution will be able to monitor who's doing what, and that will help us to approach students later on to understand where they are, what they might have done, what they might not have done, what's working. So if a module, everybody took it and they're still really challenged with this, clearly it's not working, so we need to change what we're doing. So I think by offering it in that way and color coding it to, based on the student's individual profile or needs, we'll be able to cut down on some of the noise that's out there, because right now everything's just flat on the screen. Everything looks as important as the next. It's hard for students to figure out where to begin and where to end and where to go next. And so I think this will allow us to provide students with an actual workflow program that they can start and work through, and we can see on our end what's working and what's not.
Well, and again, it's the origin point for personalized learning experiences, right?
Absolutely.
So it starts before you even start learning. We are looking at you as a person, as an individual who's operating within a community, and it's relevant. The things that are relevant at the community level are important, but we have to also consider what's most relevant to you as an individual. This is the beginning of personalized learning. And if we want to get crazy and really think of it, and I'm exploring this in different ways at different institutions, and I know you are as well, wouldn't it be magical? Because it's all wonderful when we build out these programs that are meant to target specific needs, like the transition of students or the onboarding of international students. Wouldn't that be incredible information for an instructor in a curricular course to have on their student?
Absolutely.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if the student could see visualized growth and development and skill acquisition over the course of their entire student life cycle?
Absolutely. And I think, so I'll finish one thought and then I'll talk about something else. But like the idea behind this platform, this experiential learning platform, is that they will walk away with a co-curricular record at the end of it, and that they will be able to see individual workshops or programs that they've participated in. But also, we're in the process of creating, as you know, a number of digital badges that focus in on specific skills. And so they'll be able to walk away with a transcript, a co-curricular transcript that will outline that they've completed certain skill-based digital badges, which they can then show an employer. In terms of showing faculty, this information is also going to be used as part of what we're currently calling, although it is not going to be the final name for it, our success score. And so several years ago, we worked with the research area at the college, institutional research, to create an algorithm that could predict students who may need higher touch experience at the college versus those who perhaps are more independent learners. We've revamped that algorithm this year based on some new data. And what we've essentially done is we've taken information that we have about students prior to arrival. So during that Head Start phase, what are their high school transcripts? What did their IELTS tests say? All of this different information, and we put it into the algorithm, and it's predicting sort of three streams of students. Which students are those independent learners that we probably don't need to have very much of an intervention with those? Our middles of the range students who perhaps need a little bit higher touch experience. We perhaps need to connect them with resources, and then those other students who really require that higher touch experience. They need direct connection. Perhaps they're coming from communities that didn't have resources like this in the past, and so they're not even aware that they exist, and where to find them. We're essentially calling that the hidden curriculum right now. How do we tell them what is available? How do we show them what they don't know, essentially, in terms of the infrastructure that we've got here to support them? And eventually, the work that they do through that co-curricular platform will feed into that score as well. So we're going to get that score at the beginning, and then we are devising an intervention strategy that will allow us to take that score, that information that we know about students, provide them with the intervention, and then measure it at certain key points throughout their academic journey to see whether our intervention has actually improved the student's
Yeah.
ability to succeed, or whether we still need to work a little bit harder to get them there.
The iteration, the process
Absolutely.
approach, right? It's not I'm going to label you and then that label sticks. It's this is an opportunity for us to start with what you might find useful. Again, another example of that personalized learning. And again, you're talking about skills and personalized skill development as well. So it's kind of 2 for the price of 1. Oh, and 3 because we're talking about transitional programs.
Yeah.
I love me talking about some skills. So I also want to ask you what you've seen change in recent years in terms of the skills. I want to say it's not necessarily that it's changed that students need these skills, because I'm pretty sure they needed them all the time. We just didn't provide opportunities for them to develop skills.
Yeah.
I definitely needed to have a time management skill course when I went to McGill University, and that just wasn't available.
Yeah.
So what have you noticed in terms of maybe changing needs?
Mm-hmm.
And then 2, in terms of institutional mindsets around, we are here to help you develop some of these things.
Yeah.
We're not just here for subject matter expertise and discipline-oriented diplomas. And, we're here to help you holistically.
Mm-hmm.
How have you seen that skills story evolve in recent years?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say, I think in the olden days, a bachelor's degree, I'm sure even before my time, high school was sufficient, but, a bachelor's degree was what you needed. A bachelor's degree is what you needed, and you were going to graduate, and regardless of what you learned, you were going to get a job. And then it became a master's degree. And then it went on to, perhaps even a PhD for some people. And I remember 15 years ago at Rotman, there would be students, in particular international students, who would graduate with an MBA from the Rotman School of Management, one of the top business schools in the country. And then they would go on to do the CFA or something else. And it boggled my mind that after all of this education, do you really need more? And I think what I've learned and seen, especially being on the college side of things now, is the importance of having this connection to the labor market, the importance of understanding the real needs of employers, and how in many ways the college is really well positioned to do that, because that is the reason for their existence. Each program has a professional advisory committee, we call a PAC, that advises on the curriculum and keeps those programs current. And so I think that by the colleges in particular were well positioned to do that. And as the labor market has evolved, there are no more degrees to get once you've hit the PhD. So what else do we need now to make sure?
Postdocs, Laura. There's no telling you to go for a postdoc.
Well, that's true.
I'm doing it, but some people did.
But in terms of employer needs, getting students jobs, I think that's what we've seen in recent years is employers coming back and saying, well, that's great that they've got PhDs, but they can't write an email, or they can't create a budget, or they don't know how to analyze data. And that's where we've been able to drill down to the granular level of what are the specific skills that students need. And I think that's sort of opened up a whole new world of the micro-credential. How do we rather than create a whole master's degree or a whole bachelor's degree in data analytics, let's create a couple of courses or one course even in data analytics. Let's create a digital badge in data and let students do it over and above their college diploma, over and above their university degree, or as they're working in a job as part of a lifelong learning experience, to make sure that they are remaining current with what the labor market is requiring of them. So I think that's the exciting part of today, is that we're kind of breaking free of this stronghold that the university and that the college system has placed on us, in a sense. And education it almost brings me back to the time of traveling when I was 16, where education is everywhere. It is in the master class where you're learning from Bob Iger about how he ran his business to what you're taking on Udemy or Coursera. So I think, when it appeals to different kinds of students, which is wonderful. It allows you to continue to learn in addition to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It comes in so many different formats, whether it's in a classroom or it's online. So we're leveraging technology in that way. And I think it's a very exciting time to be in education because you're forced out of that comfort zone again. And you're forced to try new things. So.
Oh, amazing. No, and it's this, I find that there's a few different ways people respond to it, right? Because ultimately we are this high level of personalization now because of the different needs. And I think students always require different things, but we were so, the monolith of higher education was so rigid and regimented in time and space. Yes. You go to this place for 4 years or, around there, and you are then validated as being a person who can then go into the workforce and earn this income level.
Yes.
And now the opportunities in the workforce and gig economy and entrepreneurialism are the myth of employee roles being the goal.
Yeah.
Has been burst. And so by nature of that, the higher education institutions have needed to adapt and respond to those changes in the workforce. The other thing that I think is really funny is when the changes to the workforce happen, a lot of higher education institutions are focused on the discipline changes. So for example, the data analytics or cybersecurity, so they create these micro credentials that are domain focused. So yes, we need these new sets of credentials or skills and knowledge assets in the workforce. So we need to fill those gaps. What I find really exciting about where we are today is that we are the point that you were mentioning earlier. They can't write emails. They can't present. They can't manage their time. They can't present in front of a group. They can't, synthesize an argument. These types of skills, however we want to label them, as long as we don't label them as soft.
Yes.
True. They're certainly hard to learn. Okay. Those skills, whether we approach them as a co-curricular skills lab, you can take them as a micro-credentialed program, you get a digital badge, it aligns to your LinkedIn profile or your co-curricular record, hopefully moving towards these comprehensive learner records where it's a one-stop shop where students can create this beautiful mosaic of development and acquisition. Those ones are the ones I really want to embed. And this is where I keep coming up against a problem. I'm going into the curricular space for a minute. I know it's not necessarily where you operate on a daily basis, but my struggle and my fight is in, so the system has changed. We're talking about the dismantling of a really big thing that lived for a lot of decades this way.
Yeah.
So people are like, yes, let's put new skills-based programming in. Yes. Let's support students with personalized transition programs and talk about some of these important human, social, emotional skill sets. But when it comes to the curricular classroom, where an instructor has been hired for a specific level of subject matter expertise, does not have a teaching degree, is not mandated to do professional development and teaching. If they want to, they can. There's lots of places for them to learn how to teach in different ways. This is where I wonder what you think is coming, because I don't know how willing or the system is to change. It seems, it's like an orange or a, I'm trying to think of a thing that has a pitch, all these other layers can get peeled off. No problem. Let's change that. Okay, well, it'll take some time. Oh, okay. I didn't really want to do it, but I'm willing to experiment there. But when we get into that classroom experience that's dominated by faculty or department level curricular oversight,
yes.
And these instructors in the university environments have research mandates, and I'm not sure about the college environment, but their research, their domain is what they're hired for. How willing do you feel at that level innovation is taking place in terms of these things, personalized learning, socio-emotional or life skill integration in these environments?
Yeah. So I definitely think the university environment is different from the college environment. And I can only speak to my experience, but I've had, and certainly there will be some naysayers. And I do meet them on a daily basis, but I prefer to focus in on our champions. And I think one of the things that I've had luck in two distinct areas. So I learned early on. So I'm going to just take a step back for a second and say there was I had a faculty member come to me a few years ago, pre-COVID, and she sat in my office and she said, "We got to talk about international students. They're following me out to the parking lot. They're calling me at all hours of the day because they want their grade changed. I just need you to tell them that that's not appropriate." And I'm like, well, maybe it's a little bit of a different conversation. And so based on that, I sat with my colleagues and we created an intercultural program, and it was wonderful, Michelle. You know, you had the learning part of it, you had the experiential part of it, and for the three people who did it, they thought it was fabulous. And what I learned from that experience is that I can create any number of co-curricular programs or travel experiences, but for a busy student whose time is so precious, if I can't find a way to fit it into something that they're already doing, it's not going to work. And so, especially coming into the college environment where the curriculum is so prescribed, I spent a lot of time, and I think we need to spend a lot of time working very closely with faculty to figure out ways to integrate a lot of what this is right into the curriculum in a complementary way. And I think we've been able to do that. And in back to my two specific examples. So the first example is our global experience programming. So when I first came into Centennial, for example, we were doing a lot of service learning programs, and we'd send people away for a week and they'd have a wonderful experience in Jamaica running a leadership program or at an orphanage in China. And everybody certainly had a wonderful time. But from my perspective, I was like, how are we supporting the learning of an engineering student by sending them on a leadership program to Jamaica? I mean, certainly there's learning there, but how do we enhance the learning from their own academic program that makes them more marketable in the job market, which is essentially what the college environment is supposed to do. And so we spend a lot of time, we pulled apart all of our global experience programs, and we rebuilt it so that 85% of the programs we run are actually built into curriculum. And so to do that, we work very closely with faculty to say, okay, if you have a program or a cluster of programs, or even you two or three faculty from different academic schools want to come together and work on a project together and pull your students from 3 different or 4 different academic schools together, we can bring this diverse group of students and faculty together and build it into their curriculum so that they're actually getting graded on the prep work that they're doing, their experience abroad, the follow-up deliverable that they have to submit, so that it is enhancing what they're doing. They're learning it in an international environment, so they're getting that international global perspective. But in addition to that, they're benefiting from diversity of thought by bringing together all these different people together on this one project. So it doesn't hurt that I have lots of money to give faculty to do this, but I find
incentives. We don't even need to talk. We're going to pull on the incentives thread. I don't know. It's a tricky one, but it's true. But like you said before, this is all about integration.
It is.
This is when we were talking about the needs assessment and the programs that we're working with on onboarding or transitioning students into the learning environments. How are we connecting things?
Yes.
These things that exist in silos for students, which is overwhelming for them cognitively while they're trying to also perform in these curricular environments. How can we forge as many connections between skill-based learning opportunities and personalized learning opportunities that are integrated and connected with the reason that you're there, the reason that you're here? Because we know that the reason that you're here is to accrue some sort of capital, whether human capital, social capital. And in order to do what our job is as institutional practitioners and systemic designers in these spaces, is to provide as holistic an experience as possible for you. That allows you to take on an experience in a global environment, in an international context, if that's something, easily. Yes, I'm going to connect that to your curriculum. Yes, I'm going to connect that co-curricular program and this development of those skills to the record of learning that you have in your other courses and on campus. And we want to make sure that all of this is translatable and easy to understand, not only for you as a student, but for those who you want to show and demonstrate your learning to after you leave this institution. I mean, cohesion, connection, integration, these are incredibly important terms to be considering when we think of where we're moving forward to in academic innovation.
For sure.
I'm in the interest of time, I want to just finish off with a few I was calling them lightning round questions, Laura, but really as an educator, I have to call them tickets out the door. You remember those when we were younger? Here's the ticket out the door. I'll let you leave if you answer these questions.
Okay.
So just a few rapid fires. Complete these sentences for me. Teaching is...
Teaching is difficult.
Oh.
But rewarding.
Oh. Difficult, but rewarding. Learning is...
transformational.
Oh! You know, you're not the first person. I had a really interesting conversation with another person talking about emancipation.
Oh, yes.
Like that transformational capacity of education.
Yeah.
Amazing. Education systems are...
archaic.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And like we can chip away, I feel, at these traditional systems. And it really speaks to me, this idea of building things when you have an opportunity from the ground up. Because when I think if I could have been around when the industrial model of education was built and just been, a contributor around those tables, which I'm sure were completely filled with white men at the time, it's so much harder to unbuild and unlearn these things than it is to start from scratch. So what is something or someone that's really inspiring to you right now?
My 6-year-old, actually. Yeah, okay. I watch her as someone who is very shy and introverted, and she has really come out of her shell this year with these presentations and all being pushed out. She has approached them with an open mind, and she has done incredibly well. So
you have seen your daughter embody that uncomfortable space.
Yes.
Grow.
Yes.
What a magical thing to witness.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, what are you excited about? What are you most excited about when it comes to the future of teaching and learning? We know the systems are broken. We know they're archaic. We're chipping away as best we can. But is there something that particularly excites you about where we could be going?
Mm-hmm. I think we are in a time of real disruption. I mean, I know we've talked about it in the past, but between COVID and what came out of COVID, what we had to do to survive COVID, and then the subsequent focus on upskilling in recent years, I think having come out of COVID now, I think those two things are really, and even things like artificial intelligence as well now. I mean, that's really forcing the hand of change. And I think we're not going to have a choice to sit back and rest on our archaic laurels, so to speak, moving forward. We are going to have to change. And so as somebody who champions change and really feels comfortable in ambiguity and finds their sweet spot there, I'm excited by what we're all going to have to do.
I am very grateful. I know it was a difficult time in your life, but I'm grateful your parents got that divorce.
So I know.
You were able to go to Germany, and that this world of education and the value of uncomfortable situations for growth really came home into your heart. Because as someone who's a colleague of yours and just on this conversation, hearing about the work that you do, it's so important to have people like you in this space, especially now more than ever. Comfort in discomfort. Someone like yourself who's comfortable in these spaces of uncertainty are going to serve as stewards and help us steer our way as we fumble and we fail and we fall, hopefully forward.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laura, for taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, thanks, Michelle. Fun as always.
The Education Revolution podcast is produced in-house by community members, and I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Sangera. Thank you for listening to this week's episode, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and head over to my website to opt in for my newsletter for more ways to connect with some of these big ideas.